does South Africa do about this? You've got to be an incredibly deluded South African not to know that Donald Trump's purported reasons for what he's doing are based on quicksand. They're wrong. The fact that you worry that sometime down the line, sometime in the future, the Expropriation Act might be used by a more hostile government with a more lily-livered judiciary to expropriate productive farmland without compensation, doesn't mean it's happening now. His actions towards South Africa are guided by a complete absence of reality and of cold, hard fact. They're guided by an animus. They're guided by spite, by a spirit for vengeance, which we can speculate about, but we just don't know what is completely and utterly at the root of it. So when you're dealing in a post-fact environment, how do you change the on-the-ground reality? We've got Naledi Pandor saying we need to communicate better. You can't communicate better with Trump. And Trump is the US government in a way that previously American presidents haven't been completely and utterly the US government. Kuseni Dlamini is president of the American Chamber of Commerce in South Africa. Kuseni, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, John, and good afternoon to your listeners. Thank you for having me.
I'm very interested to know what your thoughts are on how South Africa gets the message across, A, that legislation for redress, or let me say that redress is necessary, that South Africa suffered a terrible racist past, which deliberately disadvantaged large numbers of South Africans, black-colored Indian, and that needs to change, and that there is no and is not likely to be imminent invasion of land, and that large numbers of people, large numbers of Afrikaans farmers are not being treated poorly by the government. How do you counter that?
Absolutely, you're absolutely spot on in terms of how we have to counter that, and that's the key challenge at the moment. Is also an opportunity for us to connect and engage that much better, and indeed just make sure that from a messaging point of view, we've got very clear and explicit messaging around the impact and implications of the Expropriation Act. President Ramaphosa has made it very clear, John, that this is not a confiscation instrument, but rather it's a constitutionally mandated process that is designed to ensure public access to land in a just and equitable manner, guided by the South African Constitution. I think what needs to be done here now, given where we are, we need to craft a carefully thought out strategic and tactical response to try and dispel the misinformation and disinformation that seems to have been the reference point for President Trump in making the executive order that he has made. And now is the time for us to engage that much better from a diplomatic point of view. But we need to go beyond that, John, and look at how
you talk about these things as if you're dealing with somebody who works roughly according to the diplomatic global rules that have been established. And inadequate though they may be, and imbalanced though power relationships throughout the world may be, there has been a sort of understanding of these are the rules. And Donald Trump has thrown the rule book out of the window. The man that is going to be the ambassador in South Africa, Joel Pollock, tweets, "If you support terror at ICJ, no consulate in Johannesburg if you name streets after terrorists, no investment if you exploit race for expropriation, no Trump at G20 unless you play nice with the West." Now, with the president and his ambassador in South Africa having those views, what carefully crafted strategy is going to work?
It's really to make it clear, John, the fact that South Africa is a constitutional democracy. Everything that is going to be done when it comes to land expropriation will be guided by the Constitution. We are not a banana republic. We are not a society that doesn't have rule of law. We are actually like the US. We are a democracy. we believe in the rule of law, and we believe in treating people and private property in a responsible and fair way, and we want investment in this country. South Africa is home to about 600 American corporates operating in this market, employing over 200,000 South Africans, and combined they account for approximately 10% of our GDP. South Africa is the US's largest trading partner. So if South Africa is harmed, the US economic interests will also be harmed. And that's one of the messages we need to put across. And the US is South Africa's second largest trading partner after China, John, as you know.
But again, I say that all of this would work if you were dealing with somebody who would go, oh, I didn't realize those were the facts. I'm sorry, I'm going to withdraw my executive order immediately. Donald Trump does not strike me as being that kind of person who, being presented with what you and I and most of the people listening to me now would agree are the facts around South Africa, he's not the kind of person to go, oh, thanks for letting me know. Give me my pen so I can scratch out that executive order.
Yeah, to your point, you're spot on. What needs to be done is not just the message, but it's also the messenger or the messengers. The messengers have got to target Trump's inner circle. Who does he listen to? Who influences his thinking? And those are the people that we should scramble and seek to identify and reach out to and connect with, and make sure that we deliver these messages and make sure the messages they land in the right way, so that when they're communicated to him, he will see that, you know, he has been misled. He's not been given the true facts. And again, we also need at this stage, I'd like to argue, given where we are, a multi-party approach and a whole of society approach from a South African point of view that actually includes the leaders of AfriForum, who have been on a campaign to spread a certain narrative, but now let's agree on a Team South Africa narrative together with AfriForum, together with leaders from the farming community and the agribusiness sector, to actually set the record straight. Because if we go down this road, it's actually our agricultural sector, it's our farmers who export through AGOA to this great market, a lucrative US market, that are going to suffer together with the workers that work for those farms. And this will have unintended adverse economic consequences.
Kuseni, with the American businesses that are operating in South Africa, are there South Africa-based or US-based CEOs of those companies that have the ear of somebody in Donald Trump's inner sanctum? Is there a viable, visible, practically reachable intermediary to try and get this message communicated by somebody who might have some impact with the communication of the message because of the person sharing the message, if that made sense?
Yeah, John, across the board, whether it's in government circles, diplomatic circles, or business circles, or civil society circles, or think tanks, there are people that in varying degrees will probably have access, and those are the people that we need to identify and leverage their relationships and make them to be the messengers and make sure that the message lands very well. And I think that's one of the things that we can and indeed must do, in my view.
Okay, and your optimism around this, your sense of, I mean, you've got to try it, and the government must try, and other business entities, organizations representing the farming interests that will lose out when AGOA goes, because I think for the moment when is more likely than if, and the automotive manufacturers will lose out as well. Are you at all positive that you've got to do it? You've got to do it, but do you do it with a sense of, you know what, I think it's actually going to work?
Yeah, Johnny, it's time for a reset. I see this as an opportunity to turn a lemon into lemonade. We need to engage, and I was very pleased in the State of the Nation address. The President will be sending a delegation, but we need to look beyond delegations and just make sure that on an ongoing basis, our public diplomacy, our economic diplomacy efforts are targeted and are consistent in engaging with all players in Washington, friends and foes alike, whether they're in the Republican Party or in the Democrats. We need to build relationships that are going to support and promote the South African economic interest. And we also need to reach out to U.S. media, U.S. think tanks, U.S. opinion formers and leaders, universities, communicate churches, communicate across the board, almost the same as what we used to do during the anti-apartheid struggle, building a broader and diverse coalition of support across the board. And this just does not only just apply to the U.S., it just applies to how we want to position ourselves as a world-class economy and society globally. We should do the same thing with the EU, do the same thing with the Far East, whether we engage with countries that are systemically and strategically important to our economic interest.
Kuseni, thank you very much for making time for us this afternoon. Much appreciated. Kuseni Dlamini is president of the American Chamber of Commerce in South Africa.